One of my greatest joys is reading the book of history that the earth has written for us within the rock record. Here I observe the sandstones deposited within an ancient river some 57 million years ago. My goal is to help you read this marvelous book. Hello out there! Boy, am I excited to share with you the geology of ancient river systems. Wow, I mean, this is such a special place to me. It's some of the best outcrops in the entire world to study these fluvial systems or river systems. And it happens to be right in my backyard in the middle of the Bighorn Basin. Wow, I'm pretty darn fortunate for that. And also it's a special place for me because I hiked out here a lot with my dad and my great uncle, and this is where I started to become interested in the rocks and earth history and geology. So I'm sure looking forward to this. Now it turns out that there are several different types of rivers or river systems and the components that make them up. And some of the videos that I release over the next several months will focus on certain river components or river systems. In this first video on these ancient rivers, I want to focus on the simplest one of all, which is basically a confined channel that doesn't move around very much. I'm going to draw a sketch for you to help us understand that. Okay, so the simple confined channel is just like I've shown in this map view, looking from above of this river system. Very simple. And if we dig a trench across here and look sideways, so a sideways view, let me show you this one. Some little brush here, a little bit of brush. This is a fairly small channel. They can be bigger or smaller. And we show a classic smiley face with the bank here, and water in here, okay? Fairly obvious, isn't it? Let me put some sand in here. Just dot around some sand. Okay, so it fills with sand and gravel along the bottom of this channel, okay? But of course there can be variations, and I'm just showing one, where you may have the bank of the river come down a bit, like so, and then down to a deeper channel. We call this a wing of the channel. So that's just one variation of pretty much an infinite number of variations. So now that we have these concepts in our mind that I've sketched here and talked about, let's get out and get our hands on the rock, should we? Isn't this a beautiful channel? It's just beautiful sitting here encased in mudstone. I want to start with a small scale channel that is also simple, cross-sectional view. This one's encased in mudstone. As you can see, there's mudstone that surrounds it, and this mud-rich system is very common. And just a beautiful sandstone body that's been deposited by this single channel. Just another small, beautiful little channel. This one, of course, is a different shape, more tabular shape. They come in all kinds of shapes. Another beautiful isolated channel we have here, huh? I see two stories or two levels in this channel. An initial one that's smaller, the lower light-colored one. And then as it broadened out and got bigger apparently and carried more sand, it got this bigger upper story that developed, or upper level. These are sure fun, and they're all over the place out here. Whenever I see a large channel like this, I start to imagine how difficult it would have been to cross, especially while flooding, for the early mammals that roamed the great floodplains of these rivers. Some of these animals included the early horse, early predators, early rhinos and pigs, and giant flightless birds. And perhaps most importantly, the first primates were hanging out in the trees around here. Well, it's sure been fun to see these beautiful outcrops that show nice cross-sectional views of channels. But you know, sometimes we get even more fortunate. and we get even better exposures and outcrops of channel sands. Let me explain. So I have drawn a nice big layer of rock here in blue with a channel within it. So it's mudstone around it here, okay, all mudstone like we've seen, and a nice channel. Now sometimes the erosion comes in from above, nice and gentle, rather than steep and rugged. So what can happen? Let me take my eraser here and have erosion come along, knock that out, and at some point it gets to the channel, right? And I'll put it right here, a little lower than the channel, the top of the channel. Now we have a bit of an exposure of the channel sandstone above the ground surface. Wow, that's cool. And you know what's interesting is this channel is really durable and hard to erode relative to the mudstones. So here I am on some of this nice, durable, hard sandstone. And you might ask, well, how does this happen? How does it become so hard and durable? Well, it turns out after the deposition of nice, soft sands in the river or on a beach, they're buried. And as they're buried, they're within the water table. The groundwaters are flowing through, and they're mineral rich. And they begin to precipitate cement out of the groundwater onto the sand grains and bind each individual sand grain to each other. And then, of course, it becomes very durable. There are various cements, but in this case, it's calcite. So this process keeps going until, let me erase, okay? I can do something like this that occurs all the time out here in these beautiful badlands. I can erode it to where I have a land surface. Let me erase this layer of rock from erosion and this layer of rock. Okay, and now I have the channel sitting on top of a nice little hill. And that's from side view. And from above, what we see is this channel in a nice ribbon of sandstone, maybe something like this, okay? That's the top of this. You're looking down. That's when you get really lucky because everything around it has eroded down, like I've depicted here. All this mudstone has eroded more easily and left that on there, that channel on there, and it leaves kind of a high ridge, a ridge of mudstone with a channel on top. Now that's super cool, isn't it? Of course, they're all variations, from barely exposed channel sandstone on top to here, to where, and then they start crumbling away and big blocks falling to the ground. So with these concepts in mind, let's look at some more beautiful outcrops of ancient river sandstones. Being out in geology and beautiful landscapes brings such a sense of wonder to me. What stories these badlands have to tell. I want you to pay attention to this ridge right here. It's capped with a sandstone that was deposited by a river. Let's watch this. In this area, the process of erosion has yet to uncover this beautiful channel sandstone. Remember, at one time, this entire area was covered by several thousand feet of sediments. And now we see the channel emerge from the hillside. Isn't this absolutely amazing? We're observing the actual river as it was some 50 million years ago. I would like you to think like a geologist and visualize a densely treed subtropical forest on each side of this river and a thriving, diverse community of early mammals. The dinosaurs had died off some 15 million years earlier, and now the age of mammals was in full swing. Here we see a gap where the channel has been eroded away. Here we see a beautifully exposed older channel sandstone. In fact, if you pay attention, you'll see several scattered about along this flight path. Keep in mind that at the time of this river, it was flowing in the low part of the area, and that now, due to erosional processes, it is reversed, and the fluvial sandstones are on a high ridge. We refer to this as inverted topography. And here I am thinking about the Eocene world. Here I'm hiking along the top of a beautiful channel sandstone, but it's not as well preserved as we've seen earlier. It's breaking up into large blocks. Notice where the channel goes into the hillside here. And now it exits the other side. Well, this is just really nice because now we see that two channels merge to form one channel. This V that it makes here where they merge tells us which direction the flow was at the time, which would be in this direction towards the camera. This principle of the V pointing downriver or downstream is a great one to know about. However, it doesn't work all the time. When the river ends and starts to build a delta into the ocean or a lake, it actually starts to branch downstream instead of upstream. So really what that means is these V's point upstream at that point. Well, geologists are always asking questions. And when they see and observe these various river types, they ask, well, why do we have various types and what controls them? And I want to touch on that. I've drawn a basin here, the mountains here, and a basin, okay? And in this case, the basin is being filled with river sediments, mud-rich, lots of mudstones, okay? And as the basin is subsiding, it's filling in with sediments. Now, it turns out if the basin is subsiding fairly rapidly, you're more prone to have these isolated channels. So let me show a period. I'll draw a big layer here that's been filling in the basin, okay? And within it, well, we have our isolated channels that I'm talking about. Okay? Now, of course, there are times when the basin isn't subsiding really. It may stop for a period of time. And that's when we're more prone to have sheet sandstones or blankets of sandstone, layers of sandstone. Let me draw another layer. Let's say there's a period right through here. I'll draw a big layer of sediment, okay? Within it, instead of having these isolated channels, you may be more prone to have sheet sandstones, which I'll be discussing in another video. Now, as usual, nature's complicated. I've presented to you a fairly simple model, and yes, this does help control river systems and river types, but that's not the only thing. It turns out things like the climate can affect it, the sediment supply, the type of rocks that are being eroded, all kinds of things, but this is one of the main drivers. So looking at the stratigraphic column, we've been observing these isolated channels in the 50 million year old Willwood Formation. Now I want to go back in time some 100 million years to the age of the dinosaurs in the Jurassic Morrison Formation and overlying Cretaceous Cloverleaf Formation. As you may know, the Morrison Formation is one of the most prolific rock layers for finding dinosaur bones in the Rocky Mountain West. And it turns out what I want to show you happens to be about 400 miles south of the Bighorn Basin, clear into the state of Utah. Let's go take a look at it. Doesn't this look familiar? I had my son-in-law Jason record this drone footage a few years ago when we were hiking the area. This channel sits about 30 feet above the surrounding terrain and is about 40 yards wide. Can you see it winding gently into the distance? Here are Jason and I. This area is an absolute wonder to hike in. I especially like it because I'm thinking about all these famous dinosaurs that we're so familiar with that were wandering around this region, and they were plentiful. In fact, here's some dinosaur bones that we found in the base of one of these channels as we hiked about. It turns out that most dinosaur bones are found in ancient rivers. This chart, published by the Utah Geological Survey, shows the amazing diversity of dinosaurs found in the Morrison and an overlying formation named the Cedar Mountain. Since we are talking about dinosaurs, let's go to a very special place about 100 miles north and look at these same rock formations. This is Dinosaur National Monument, a place I would highly recommend that you visit. This seemingly insignificant layer of sandstone within these steeply dipping beds is where all the drama occurred. Here is a closer look at this unit, which happens to be within the Morrison Formation. It was deposited by rivers that built broader sheet-like layers of sandstone, unlike the isolated channels we've been observing. We'll be learning about these braided river systems in a future video. It was within this very river system that some 800 individual dinosaurs met their demise. Within the monument building, we see a large face of this steeply dipping sandstone that has been preserved along with massive amounts of dinosaur bones. And to think that this is just a portion of what was here. Most of the good bones were taken to museums around the world. There's so much beautiful geology in Utah. It's just spectacular. I love to go there pretty much every year and hike around and see some of that amazing geology and scenery. I was hoping to get there this fall and do some more of the recording here for this video on scene, but darn it, couldn't get to it. I do want to show you a paleogeographic map, which means a map that shows us what the world looked like in the past. I'll show you this Blakey map, a Ron Blakey map for the Jurassic, the age of the dinosaurs. So here is this paleogeographic map, a map of the past, 150 million years ago when dinosaurs were wandering the land. This is primarily the United States. It gets up a bit into Canada, but I want to show you here Wyoming outlined in black, and Utah right here. We've been exploring the area in this region of Utah for the Jurassic. And you see these river systems that shed off the mountains, the Highland Mountains. These were called the Sevier Mountains, or the Sevier orogeny, which is older than the Laramide orogeny. So this was the landscape at that time. A good friend of mine has a wonderful website called Rock Doc Travel, and it goes into more detail about Dinosaur National Monument. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. I'm really enjoying the feedback that I get from you, the viewers. It's very helpful to me. And one of the themes that I see that comes forward fairly often are people that would love to get out and see some geology and hike around in it. But they're unable because of maybe their age, or they have health issues, or they just don't have access. You know, I'm feeling a little bit of that right now because I'll tell you what, it's cold here in Wyoming and I'm not going out and doing that geology myself. So while preparing this video, I had a flash of inspiration as I was thinking about these issues. And I thought, you know, I could provide an opportunity for you, the viewers, to do some geology on your own, right from your home, using Google Earth. So I've provided an image from Google Earth that shows an area near Green River, Utah. Not Green River, Wyoming, Green River, Utah. Find that in Google Earth and find this image that you see on the computer. And I have highlighted on the image a couple blue lines that define a nice ribbon of rock to study. And between those two lines are the Jurassic Age Morrison Formation and the overlying Cretaceous Cedar Mountain Formation. And you're going to see some really neat geologic features, especially channels and river systems. And you know what's neat about this is there's not been a whole lot of study done on this. I've read a couple of the professional papers, and they've been done some time ago, and they only highlight some little areas, okay? So in your own way, you're going to be able to do your new work and see new things. This is exciting. And maybe you'll even plan in the springtime or fall, not the summer, it's too hot out there, to go out there and spend some time. Set up a tent, set up your trailer, camping trailer, whatever, and spend some time out there and see what you've learned and touch it with your hands and walk on it from what you found while doing your Google Earth exercise. If there are some of you that haven't used much of Google Earth, that's okay. Just go to YouTube and you'll find some good tutorials on how to use it. I want to thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you're learning to read the ancient history through the rocks and that it gets you excited about learning more. Through my videos, of course, is one avenue, but even better, to get out on your own and start making some observations. Thank you.